This is Jazz Casual, and I'm Ralph Gleason. And we've been listening to the music of Turk Murphy's San Francisco Jazz Band. Jazz has many faces, as I hope most of you know, and the music and the face of jazz with which we're concerned in this program is one that is concerned itself with some of the older forms and melodies of jazz music. Turk, what was the name of that tune?
That was a tune called 1919 Rag. It was originally a French march, but I can't pronounce the name. If I knew it, I could pronounce it. I think the reason people in New Orleans gave it up originally was they probably couldn't say it either.
Does this tune date back to the early days of jazz?
It dates back to the very beginning because, as you and I discussed before, at various times, there was very little music to go by when American jazz was first invented. So they picked up the marching bands, played in these little green books that they bought from the stores. And they had most of the European marches, of which one was the High Society, which about 10 people claim. And this happened to be a French march, which was later called 1919 for some reason.
What terms do you use to describe your music, the type of music, the style of music that Turk Murphy plays?
Well, our terminology is sort of on the run at the present time. It seems like, but we still call it traditional jazz.
And what do you mean by this? Traditional in what sense?
Well, traditionally, in as much as we've, from the very beginning, the form hasn't changed too much. It's not an experimental music. It stays to more or less of a form of its own, even though the tunes change and the type of playing. The bands will change from the technique of the individuals in the groups.
Does the instrumentation change very much?
It does. It has in the past many times, such as some very strange instruments, like sarrusophone, those things that Sidney Byassee brought in. Of course, soprano sax was one of Sidney's instruments, and that was not considered part of the original New Orleans type of band, I don't believe.
Have you tried to use any unusual instruments yourself in your band?
Bob Helm plays soprano sax occasionally here. I've tried a few things with not much luck. I seem to have enough of a struggle playing one these days.
What is the basic repertoire that you have and that you use? What does it consist of?
Well, we try to represent each one of the people we admire to begin with. We try to represent Joe Oliver, known as King Oliver, represent Jelly Roll Morton, represent Louis Armstrong, many of the lesser ones, such as the Dodds brothers, and many of the piano players. We represent ragtime to a certain extent, which we think some of the greater ones were Scott Joplin, those people.
Well, now, when you say that you try to represent the King Oliver Band, I assume that you play some tunes that were associated with them. How do you go about doing this? Do you go to the records for research on them, or what?
Some of the tunes were not available. We've gone to records on, but I've had a lot of luck in recent few years. I would say recent by the last 5 years. I've got a lot of the original manuscripts of Oliver's tunes, which makes a little more sense because in Oliver Band, it was the two cornets were quite obscure. They worked so closely together, you couldn't tell which was the lead sometimes. But by being representative, I don't mean to play like these bands, because we don't have the same technique, don't have the same temperament, because music itself deals in temperament more than anything else. I mean, a band such as this is no different from the modern jazz groups. The technique will differ, the personnel will differ, so the band sounds different. You can't. If you start playing a series of notes put on a piece of paper as they are, they wouldn't come out no matter how you play them. It's like the original anyway. They wouldn't come out that way.
So you're involved more in preserving a concept than
that's right,
than an actual copy of something.
When I say tunes representative of these various people, the tunes that they've written, and we attempt to play these a little bit differently so as to give them our own personal touch, but we play them the way we thought they were meant to be played. On the other hand,
now if you don't have available the sheet music to, as you have been lucky with the Oliver tunes, do you then have to go to the record to find out? Well,
of course we had to go to the record in the very beginning to find out how the music went.
Yeah.
So we've been forced to resort numerous times to the tunes themselves, because in some cases the tunes were written by people, just played by the people and were written down on the spot. I doubt if many were published or not.
Yeah.
So you can't always get written music this way. But in this case, as we did when we first tried to pattern ourselves, something to go by, we go back and find the tune this way from the records.
Do you also add to your repertoire original tunes composed by your own?
We do this.
players?
Bob Helm and myself are composing most original tunes now. We have, between Bob and myself, we have about 45 or 50 tunes.
Are these in the style of
the style of the original band? Of course,
I see.
this style is quite varied. It's various colors of tunes. I mean, each person that writes one has a different concept too.
Yeah.
How they think should sound. We try to keep the music alive rather than let it remain static, because we're open to a lot of criticism if we play much the same as it always was. And of course, the truth is that we couldn't help to do this anyway in the first place.
Sure.
It'd be impossible.
Now, I understand that one of the tunes you're going to play for us now is a composition of one of the members of your band.
Yeah, Bob Helm wrote this next tune.
What is it called, Ted?
It's called Daybreak Blues.
Daybreak Blues.
I won't delve into Bob's personal life. It's just, he probably wrote it about 5 a.m. like that.
Well, other than the personal overtones, are there anything special about the structure of this tune that you wanted to point out to us?
Well, this is not. It's not a blues.
Ah.
It has two strains, neither of which are blues. And Bob just happened to call it Daybreak Blues. It would give a listener a blues sound to a certain extent, except it's a little bit faster than the concept of blues, a little faster tune. But he happened to call it
Daybreak.
this, but the form is not quite accurate.
Fine. Well, can we hear it then?
I'd like to go ahead.
Wonderful. Love to hear it. We're going to hear Turk Murphy, the San Francisco Jazz Band, with Bob Helm on clarinet, Bob Neighbor on trumpet, Pete Clute on piano, Harold Johnson on tuba, and Lloyd, Byassee on drums, and a composition by Bob Helm, which, although it is not a blues, is still called Daybreak Blues.
For our next tune, we'd like to do one that has some strange qualities. This was written by the great King Oliver, but he didn't record this. The only person who did record it in those times was Jelly Roll Morton. Our version of this features a vocal by Bob Helm. Here's one called Dr. Jazz.
Everybody gets the blues now and then and don't know what to do. Say, I've had it happen many times before, and so have you. But those days are gone and past. I found out what to do at last. When I'm all in down and out, you will hear me shout, "Hello, Central, give me Dr. Jazz." Say, he's got what I need, I say. When the world's got me down and I've got those blues, he's the man that makes me get on both my dancing shoes. The more I get, the more I want, it seems. I page old Dr. Jazz in my dreams. When the trouble's bound and mixed, he's the guy that gets it fixed. Hello, Central, give me Dr. Jazz. He's the guy that gets it fixed. Hello, Central, give me Dr. Jazz.
This next one really is the blues. This is one called the Terrible Blues. To show you the length we go to change the way tunes sound, this was, in the original records of this, were featured clarinet. We go to the opposite end of the scale. This one features some tuba work by Shorty Johnson. Terrible Blues. For our next one, we'd like to throw in one for Ralph. I know he likes some of the Morton tunes. This one is one in which Jelly Roll Morton used a bit of comedy along with some sound effects. We wouldn't dare to go this far because maybe people would tab us as Spike Jones in a minute. But here's one for you called Sidewalk Blues.